And then we picked grapes in France, and my boyfriend left me at that time. And he went to Paris, and I stayed in Gabion, this little village in France. And I was hitchhiking at the end of the grape season. I worked with people from Spain who would play the guitars and drink wine during lunch and share their lunches with me.
Yeah.
And it's a dangerous job because the chemicals on the grapes, and you'd cut your fingers, and people got terrible
infections.
Yeah, it was a rugged job. So I was hitchhiking after that to Paris, and the people I was traveling with got in a terrible car accident. I don't remember 2 hours up to it, but we were driving. I was sitting in the back on the passenger side, and of course they were from Britain, and they came into the traffic circle and went the wrong way, and we were hit by a car that hit my door. And I broke my jaw in two. I don't remember. I was in a coma for a while. I broke my jaw in 2 places, my pelvis in 3 places. My mother got a call at 4 a.m. that I would never walk again.
Oh my God.
So that's how I woke up in a French hospital with my jaw. I remember waking up, just one little memory. I woke up and my bottom jaw was here. I remember feeling, and then I went back into my unconsciousness.
Yeah, right.
So I flew home from there after another month and convalesced. The State Department took my passport, and they said I owed them $2,000 because I took up 6 seats on American Airlines, and the ambulance had to come and pick me. Right, I couldn't walk for a year, almost a year actually. So they attached my passport till I paid them back. I wrote American Airlines and told them what had happened and why I took up 6 seats, and they sent $1,000 to the State Department.
Oh, that.
But I still owe $1,000.
But that was a lot of money back then.
It was.
Sure, it was.
So I lived with my parents, and I still owe the $1,000. On the day I paid it off, I went to Boston, picked up my passport, got on a plane, and went to Amsterdam.
Geez, you just could not stay in this country, could you?
No.
Why didn't you stay? What was keeping you out of the country then?
You know, I had my best friend, who's still my best friend, lived in Amsterdam at that time with her Dutch husband. They hadn't married. I came and was her best maid of honor. But, you know, I was an at-risk kid. I grew up hard.
You did?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Oh, I didn't get that.
Yeah.
Why was it hard?
My father was an alcoholic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mine too.
Yeah.
But he left when I was 7, so I didn't even see him.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's tough.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I grew up.
So you grew up
hard. There was love in the. I say about my father that he would have stood in front of a train to save me, and he was the train.
Yeah, right.
I mean, that's Dad, right?
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. In that time, he was fierce and.
Did he die from drinking? Related?
I don't know, prostate cancer that metastasized.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, I see. Okay.
He had quit drinking when he was 60, I think.
Oh, that's good.
Well, that was my mother.
Yes, I see. Yeah. Okay, so all right. So
I'd grown up hard. I was looking for my soul.
Get away from that. Yeah, right.
I'd grown up Catholic.
You did have religion.
I did as a young woman. I'd left it in my teens.
So the convent, when you were in India and you went to the convent, there was some familiarity. You know?
Besides being a doctor, I wanted to be a nun.
Yeah, okay. There you go. Now it's coming together.
So I was looking for my soul. I was looking for my heart. I was looking, and all this I knew was that when I was in other places, I felt more home in my body. Yeah. So I went to Amsterdam, lived with my friend Rita and her husband Frederick. We're still I have a Skype call with her later today. We're still very, very close.
That's awesome.
She's now a Jungian therapist.
Whoa.
And she's incredible. She speaks 5 languages, and she lives in Geneva, outside of Geneva. She's Swiss.
If she comes over here, let me take her for a drive.
All right.
I want to learn about Jungian
she's extraordinary.
therapy.
She's extraordinary.
That's cool.
So I lived with her for a while, and then I became an apprentice to a jeweler, and my jewelry bench broke, and the carpenter who came to fix it, I ended up marrying. My first husband, and he's.
And how old were you then?
I
when you got married?
I was 23 or 4.
Oh,
Yeah,
but you didn't have a child until you were 30?
27.
27,
Yeah.
Okay.
So we
Same
ended
guy,
up,
with that guy? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
we ended up going back to Germany. I worked at Wendy's in the Hauptbahnhof in the train station.
Wendy's?
Because to get a green card you needed a job, but to get a job you needed a green card, and Wendy's would slide a little.
Oh, that's
I
cool.
wasn't married yet.
Yep.
And I worked down, my job was to cut vegetables, so we'd be in the train station, I'd go down in an elevator, and there was this little room without windows, and I'd work there by myself, and the poor people who were addicted to heroin, and there were so many in the train station, would come into that section of the train station and use that horrible drug that kills people and destroys them.
You saw that affected you.
It did.
Yeah, I bet.
It did.
Yeah.
In the bathroom, I remember going into the bathroom down there, and there was someone who was dead who had overdosed in the women's. And
But
I
Linda,
found her.
you know, as a traveling woman going to India and reaching, you know, finding spirituality and looking for yourself, did you ever try drugs? And did you ever experiment at all?
No, and you know what? I'm so grateful I didn't.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I grew up with an addict. I'm sure I'm genetically predisposed.
You mean you don't even drink?
I don't.
Okay.
I used to have a glass of wine in the evenings in my 30s.
Yeah.
And
it doesn't work.
I think I'm allergic.
Yeah, right.
You know, I'd
I
be
think
drunk
I am too.
after half a sip.
One beer and I'm fine. I'm happy.
And someone said to me, here's what changed me. Someone said to me, is there ever a time after you've had a glass of wine that you look back and you say, I like that self?
Right.
And I was like, yeah, no, what?
Point.
Never. And I stopped.
That was a good point.
So, you know, there was a time when I was picking grapes. There were some people who were using heroin at that time. And they got together. I was living in a garage with one of the great owners of the vineyard. Had given me a garage to live in, and they came to my house and we had dinner and a glass of wine, and they asked if I would like to try heroin. And I was, well,
thinking, you had your choice. You had a chance to try it.
And someone looked at me and said, don't ever do that. You will never come back. And I said,
They were there?
They were there, and they were using. And they looked at me and said, never do this. Your life will become heroin's.
God.
And I bless them to this day.
Let's move ahead just a little bit.
For
the sense of time. But when did you find out that you were going to be a minister? When did becoming a minister become important to you?
I worked with at-risk high school young people who had dropped out of high school, and many of them were using drugs.
When was this?
So I had Gina in Frankfurt, Germany, and when I was 27 years old, her father started using drugs, and I left him when she was 3 months old and never went back. He never sent child support. That was the end of that relationship. And I lived with my mom for a few years, and then I moved in on my own and went to university and got a degree in economics. And right after that, started working with at-risk high school students who had dropped out of school, federally funded program to get them GEDs and jobs. So I did that for many years. And when I left that, Gina was 18 and she was leaving home. And I ended up being a manager in that system. And I left what had become a very big job. And I was trained as a Reiki master.
Oh, really?
And I got a job working in a hospital in Dover as a Reiki master.
Dover, New Hampshire.
Yes.
Yeah.
As an integrative therapies person. So I would go into, and this is what.
So this is your 30s, late 30s.
40s.
40s. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So I got that. I got a job in a hospital in the integrative therapies department. Very incredible hospital, Dover Hospital. And we would be called in. I used Reiki as a relaxation technique. That's how they wished to use it, and that's what I believed in it as.
Yeah.
And I would work before people got surgeries. We would play soft music. I would do a visualization, ask people to breathe. We'd put our hands on, very safe places because people had so many issues. And we would calm folks.
That's what Reiki does. It's hands-on the body part.
Some people do it above the body, but I did hands-on.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Above the energy between the hands and the body.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I did hands-on, just a light touch, and I would ask them where they wanted to go, the mountains or the ocean, or some people chose their home in a rocking chair, and I would lead them in a visualization, and then I just asked them to breathe. And, they'd have the cuff on for their blood pressure, and the nurse wouldn't be able to get in the IV because they'd be just going into surgery, which is the most anxious
Interesting.
time. And the nurse wouldn't be able to get into the IV. And after the Reiki, their blood pressure, and I wasn't the only one, there were 4 or 5 of us, their blood pressure would diminish and the nurse could get in
Interesting. It
the
really works that well. Do they still do that before?
I know. They had a budget cut, and the first people who were cut were the...
Oh.
Yeah,
but do they, it seems like it would work, so people should maybe
yes,
encourage
they have
people
volunteers still at hospitals. They do. Mm-hmm.
So you can get it done before you have surgery, to relax you.
Yes.
Oh, that's a great idea.
And would be called to people's rooms, people who had lost limbs, who had lost both of their breasts, people who they had a hospice room at that time, people who were dying.
Okay, so you saw all of this.
All of it.
And you were working with all these people.
Yes. And it was the first time in my life that I could offer something beautiful, and to do it, I needed to stop talking. It was such a gift to me.
Yeah.
It was such a gift to me.
Yep.
And that was what I was talking to about when we started. And so there was a chaplain, a beautiful man. He and I are close to this day. Mm-hmm. And he was an ex-Catholic. He is an ex-Catholic priest, married a nun, and they had 3 or 4 children.
Whoa!
And he was such a beautiful man. Is still a beautiful man. He was the chaplain. So he and I became very close because I had
a chaplain of what religion, though?
He called himself non-denominational.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And
but not Universalist.
No, not Unitarian. No. Mm-hmm.
Well, Unitarian.
No,
Universalist is different from Unitarian, right?
Well, they combined in 1961.
Oh, okay. All right.
So now we are one, but they started differently.
Right.
So I would go up to his office and ask him questions. And I had so many questions about dying and suffering and God, really. So he and I would talk and talk and talk. So he created a volunteer position for me to be a volunteer chaplain. And it was the first ever in the hospital. It's still going now.
Awesome.
Yeah. And in our time together, he said to me, "You should be a minister." And I'd always, interesting and so I applied to Harvard Divinity School. He said, "You should apply to more than Harvard Divinity School." But I didn't, because I said, I can't, at that time I said, I can't.
How can you get any lower than Harvard Divinity School? What's wrong with that as a start?
Well, because...
What did he want you to do?
It's very hard to get into. They accept 12%, I don't know, or what. So... I said, "Julian, I can't be bludgeoned by Christ." That's what I said to this dear, beautiful man. He said, "All right." And Harvard Divinity School had a department. That school was started by Unitarians, so it had a really strong Unitarian backbone.
See. Interesting.
And it's very diverse and very interfaith. So he wrote his recommendation, and the fact that I was 47 years old at that time.
Yeah.
I think those both played. I'd had great grades in high school, but that was 100 years ago.
Right.
So I had some beautiful recommendations, and his was extraordinary. So
that really kind of helped you get into.
Oh, no question.
But you were Catholic, though.
No, I had stopped being Catholic when I was 16 or 17.
You did? Oh, you stopped it?
I did.
Your parents allowed you to stop it at that age?
Oh, yes, they did.
They were okay with that?
Yes.
Weren't they Catholic?
My mother was the Catholic. She had become Catholic when she was 13 or 14 years old. She had made her own commitment to it.
Yep.
And it was very, very important to her.
Yep.
So when I stopped going to church and mass and all that stuff, I was already probably 18 years old, and she was willing to accept that.
I see. Okay,
yeah.
So that's how that ended. Okay,
yeah.
So there we are. So here you are.
Here I am.
Now you took what you learned from your whole life.
Yeah.
You went to Harvard Divinity School. You got out. Were you a minister anywhere else before you were here?
No, this is my first
was your
ministry.
first. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Was it hard to get that job?
I'm sure,
I mean,
it takes it's like a 9-month interview. I started when I was still at Harvard, and first you have a phone call, and then you build a website, and they look at your website, and then you have another phone call, and then you come and just meet the search committee, which is 5 people, and 5 other people came here for this job.
Yeah, so
and
you
then
had some competition.
They choose one to be a candidate. This is how all UUs do this. So you come for a week, and in the last Sunday of your week, you give your reflection, and then I sat on that bench with Gary, my husband, and waited for them to vote. 125 people voted.
Wow.
And I was sitting on the bench, and I'm like, Gary, UUs are very persnickety. I just don't know. And John Rivera, I'll never forget, came out of the door, and he goes, he's from Brooklyn. I've got good news and I've got bad news. I'm like, which do you want first? I'm like, just give me the bad news, John. He's like, the bad news is you're stuck with us. The good news is you're stuck with us. And I'm walking in the door. He lifts up my arm like I'm Rocky.
Oh, no.
And they all clap, and they're like, speak, but I was crying.
Oh,
and I couldn't say a word. Yeah.
So here you are. How many years has it been so far?
6.
6 already.
Yeah.
Do you love it?
I do. I love these people.
The challenges.
I love this faith.
I mean, it does, right? You love the faith. You love your job. Are you really? I mean, could you think of a better job to have?
No. There's no other job for me.
The questions
right. that
whether you stay here or not, you continue to do this work because you love this work.
I do. I mean, in Unitarianism, there's no God that we all agree on or don't agree on. There's no heaven and hell for us. There's no sacred text.
Right.
This is our sacred text. We are the sacred text.
Mm-hmm.
People say, do you believe in heaven or hell? And I'm like, well, I've never been as far as I know to either place, but I do know we're here now.
Right.
And we have work to do here now. So, I mean, these people are good. They're good people. They work hard. I make mistakes every single day, but we've got an immigration resource here. I just was facilitating a class led by 2 trans people on video, and then I lead the conversation.
Trans? You mean transsexual? They're
transgender.
Transgender, right?
And the class is called Genderqueer.
And really?
Yes. And my reflection last week was called Genderqueer.
But they're not here. Those people.
No, they weren't here.
They're on video.
Yes.
Okay.
But we have.
But why are you teaching that?
Because in our tradition, we have work that we all do as Unitarians. In the 70s, we were the first faith tradition that was behind gay marriage. LGBTQ rights have always been part of our tradition. Climate change, immigration, those are the big things that we've always worked on.
Yep.
But
and who knew that? I didn't know that. I didn't know that Universalists were like the forerunners, in the forefront of all of this.
Gay marriage, absolutely.
Yeah, and so you feel responsible to
I feel responsible to educate myself.
Oh, there you go.
LGBTQ rights, we've recently understood and learned in our tradition that trans people are not feeling included in LGBT rights, that they have identity issues that are not easily understood, that they have pronouns and identity markers that are very different from the gay populations.
Yep.
And that population, and they are being marginalized. I mean, their suicide rate is 5 times the suicide of other people. Do you know what the life expectancy is for trans women of color?
I wouldn't know.
35 years old. I mean, so it came to my attention.
Is that because of the surgery or because of
it's because of
mental?
It's because of discrimination.
Yeah.
It's because of not being able to get jobs. It's because of IDs not matching identities. It's because of not being accepted or loved or cared for or being able to. Most importantly, I think we are meaning-making creatures, and if we can't make meaning with others, then we are pushed into an isolation that is deadly, I think.
Right.
So it came to my attention that I didn't understand enough about trans rights and trans identity, and that my own welcome and celebration of trans people was not was not authentic, was not deep enough in me. So I thought, this is what I need to do to grow.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what you need to do to
16
grow is
people
part
came
of
and joined me.
is part
Yes.
of your parish.
It is.
Now, how big is it? How big is the parish?
We have about 125 members.
Yep.
Yeah.
On a Sunday service?
Oh,
How many?
downstairs maybe 50 or 60, and
Okay.
upstairs maybe 60 or 70. Yeah.
But summertime upstairs? And
Yes. Yeah. It's a beautiful sanctuary.
Now, the thing that I like to talk about and that I like to bring up to people is spirituality. And I don't care if it's if you're a Muslim or a conservative Christian or Jew.
Yeah.
The thing that I think that the world really needs is spirituality.
I agree.
That's what we're hurting on. And art. I mean, there's a correlation between spirituality and art because it's a reflection. You can use them to express yourself, which makes you feel better. So, in this day and age, you're really providing a good service.
It must
be tough.
hope.
You must feel like you're hitting your head against a wall sometimes.
For me, spirituality means, people say, especially in art, for me, we doubt. For me, doubt is holy. This is what we are best at.
Doubt is holy?
I do think so, yes.
Ooh, that's a nice
It brings us to our deepest core, I think. And that's what we that's what
everyone has
masters.
doubt.
I
Everyone
agree.
has doubt.
But we really work that doubt and work hard to be the people that we are called to be. And so people say to me, well, what does spirituality...
You're walking the walk.
On a good day, in a good moment, I still fail all the time.
Yeah, well,
but people say to me, what's spirituality? Is it, God? Is it a search for... And for me, I've finally come to feel that spirituality is when we participate in making meaning together in a covenantal relationship, which for me means we promise to stay in it together. We promise to work with each other through our light and darkness, through our good and bad days, through our hope and our despair, through our goodness and our ability and even attraction to being bad, that we promise to hang in with each other and to create meaning that allows us not only to feel good about ourselves, but that allows people around us their own wholeness. So,
Do you think that what you're talking about is actually we're kind of in reaction to where we're at right now, and that we're really divided right now in the country. We've got the guy at the top that is putting everything in chaos and spin, and people are fighting against each other and they're arguing against each other. Are you saying this because you think that this might be a time where we can really learn from this situation? And that we know it's not going to last forever.
I'm saying this because this is who I am.
This is who you are.
Because whether it's Trump or anybody else,
yeah, right.
Clearly there's some issues that have become very extreme in this presidency and this administration. But the way immigrants are treated, the way people of color are treated, the way trans and LGBTQ people are treated, these have become exacerbated. But this inability to welcome and celebrate, this inability to lean into the practice of beloved community was not created by this administration. This lives in all of us. And for me, the work that we do together here is about being more honest about what lives within us, and bringing it into the light and reviewing it and understanding that it's in many ways, it is a position of privilege and a gift of dominant culture, and that we have work to do to become the people who can lean into the practice of beloved community authentically and honestly.
Right.
We have work to do.
Yep.
And that work's always been here.
And you don't have to necessarily go to church or come to a meeting house to believe that.
Oh, no, absolutely.
I mean, you must know that there are a lot of people that respect you for what you do in the community that don't attend. I want you to know that. I know lots of people that do.
Thank you.
And that's why I wanted to take you for a ride today. You should know that.
Thank you,
and even though I don't go, I know what goes on.
Yeah,
I mean, I've got friends that go.
We work hard to be
it's just that some of us are just, for whatever reason, we don't go.
It's no worries.
But I was brought up Christian, Episcopal. I went to church. I was in the choir and all that stuff. So it's really nice to to go for a ride with somebody
Yeah.
like you and
Thank you,
and
Gene.
talk about this
Yeah,
thing. And I'm
thank
so
you.
glad that I got to know a little bit more about your background now.
Thank
Now I
you
know
so
you.
much. Thank you, Gene.
And we all do,
It's
actually.
been my pleasure.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you. You too.